Hey friends, happy Wednesday. It is your friend and host Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I'm here today to host the Ask a Flower Farmer. And here's how Ask a Flower Farmer works. So in the past couple of weeks, the actual posting your comments down in the bubble hasn't really worked. There's some glitch in Instagram. So if you have a question about growing cut flowers, seed starting, cool flowers, flower farming business, whatever you got, y'all, post it in the comments. That's different than what we normally do. If one person would actually post their question in the bubble immediately, and I'll go see if it'll actually show me. But anyway, post your questions in the comments, and I'll scroll back through and try not to miss any of them. So friends, today is a really, really big day for the Gardener's Workshop. We are literally moving today. I am standing in what's our new fulfillment center, and we have a huge Penske truck that we have filled 3 times already. I mean, we're literally just moving from across the street. And so right now, all the team is across the street now moving desks, which is pretty complicated. We've already emptied everything, and so I am over here, and I still just can't believe it, y'all. I mean, I'll just give y'all a little pan around. First off, I just want to say that I have a deeper appreciation now for people that are so nervous about business. This whole process of moving into this building has been like a year-long process, and we actually bought the building a year and a half ago, but we had renters in here, and as it drew nearer and nearer when the renters would be leaving, I began to question everything I was doing. Should I have bought that building? Is it too big? What are we going to do? You're fine, Bobo. You can come in. And I mean, it's all just cold feet, y'all. And I just want to say that I totally understand people starting new businesses, whether it's taking a big step in your business like I've done here or just starting out. But I want to just say that that's the way it's supposed to feel, y'all. That is the way. I mean, my husband gives me a pep talk every morning at the breakfast table, and it makes such a big difference. And I just want to share that with you that, if it was easy, anybody would be doing it. And you have to follow your gut, and, you just have to keep after it. Don't be afraid. Don't get paralyzed by the fear. And I have bouts of that sometimes, but I will tell you now that we have brought most of our mess over here, I do realize that we needed every square inch. So I'm just going to pan so y'all can see it. So let's see where we'll start. So there's one big door, right? We used to be across the street. And so upstairs there is where the new business office is, right up there. That's where, all the paper gets pushed, right? Then that gray floor you see behind me, that's called a mezzanine. And we actually had that installed. We gained 1,000 square feet in this building. And our seed department is going to be up there. And below that is our actual fulfillment center. So that's the seed. All of our seed racks are there waiting to be lifted up to the second floor with that forklift. Then there's pallet space. This is the packaging area where I'm standing. I mean, everything's just piled in here, right? And there is our new baby machine. That is a piece of equipment we just bought from Poland, actually. That's going to allow us to package Bio 360 in a much more efficient way than we do it. Anyway, so I just want to say, if you're afraid, you're right on track, y'all. All right, so let's see if anybody has any. So first off, let me see if the questions are going to work. Nope. So if you posted a question in the question marks like you're supposed to do, we can't do that now apparently because Instagram doesn't show them to me. So just post your questions in the comments, and I will do my best to go back through and scroll and answer them. So I want to say that the farm is looking awesome. We're having like a perfect cool flower fall. All of our cover crops are sprouted and growing even though we've had no rain. The cool flower garden is looking amazing. Bobo has more transplants she's going to plant tomorrow. We still have seeds that we're starting. So we're like in full warp cool flower mode. And I can't show, y'all, I'm doing the first in-person workshop I've done in probably 4 or 5 years. Next weekend, November 18th. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's still a couple of seats left in that. You can find it on our website. It's right at the top of every homepage. And it's going to be a great day. We're going to start the day out with lectures and teaching until lunch. Then we're going to eat lunch. Then we're going to walk down the street, which is like a third of a mile or quarter of a mile. It's not far at all. Walk down to the farm, look at the cool flower garden, look at my equipment. We're going to look at a lot of stuff. Do some hands-on swift blocking, soil blocking. Then we're going to come up here to the brand new warehouse and y'all get a in-person tour. And of course you can shop if you want to. It's going to be a great day. So register. We're here in Newport News, Virginia, and I would love to spend the day with you. It's a small group. This is, I think the cap is at 35 people. And it's going to be a great day. I am so stoked over teaching in person and being able to answer all your questions. So check that out at thegardenersworkshop.com. It's $295. We covered all of our expenses. And this is really me testing the waters to see where we're going in the next couple of years, right? So we're going to see how it goes. But I cannot wait to share the farm with you and everything that's going on and how you can get started. All right, so let's see if anybody's posted a question here. So we are still, okay, so can I direct seed dahlia seeds? I have never grown dahlias from seeds, so I cannot answer that, but I'd almost be willing to say no. I would guess that they need a little bit more of a controlled environment to get good germination. But again, I have not actually grown them from seed. Our Penny Penner is asking, are mums for cut flowers best grown as annuals or perennials? That's a really great question. So mums, I did dabble in chrysanthemums, can't always say it. Many years ago when we were in high production, we grew them to have a late fall crop. And I grew them outdoors. There's no question that if you grow them indoors in a hoop structure, most of them, to my understanding, will perennialize, or people actually take cuttings of them and start the cuttings at the end of the season, like during winter, and just plant new plants the next year because of whether they're not long-lived or they're just more vigorous when you do it that way. But there are some mums that actually perennialize. But I do think the cut flower mums, they were heirloom mums that we grew. And I know that Harmony Harvest is really doing a lot with mums, and that's where I would check out. But if you're doing it for cut flower production, you definitely need to buy specific mums from somebody like Harvest Harmony. I think she's selling them. And there's several plug suppliers of them. And there are some, I didn't grow the big fancy ones. I just wanted filler flowers to have for bouquets, right, at Thanksgiving to go along with my kale, salvia laccanthia, sunflowers, and so we grew some, and yes, they definitely perennialize. I can't believe how the wind's blowing in here. So yeah, it really depends on the variety and how you grow them. Lisa, can you discuss how you start your Delphinium larkspur? Thanks, Zone 5AB. So just to clear the confusion for folks, so larkspur, which is a direct seeded annual or a cool season hardy annual in the Delphinium family. We often refer to it as the Southerner's Delphinium because of the heat and the humidity and the length of our long, hot summers. Delphiniums the classic Delphiniums are actually perennials in the northern half of the country. For those of us in the south, we actually, it's in cool flowers, actually, true Delphiniums, but Delphinium de belladonna, I think, is the one in the book. We grow them as cool season hardy annuals because we plant them in the fall. They bloom the following early summer, and then the summer just kills them. But larkspur is still in that family. It falls under that heading. And it's a very different animal, right? So larkspur is started from seed. Classically, the true delphiniums, with the exception of the belladonna, which is, it's been so long since orientalis. Belladonna oriental, maybe it's just oriental, maybe that's the name of the variety. That's a belladonna, and that is the easiest of all the true perennial delphiniums to start from seed. So you would start that from a seed indoors, plant it out in the fall. If you're up north, it'll be a perennial. If you're in the south, plant it. It'll bloom its head off in early summer and most likely will get killed during your heat and humidity. Larkspur, on the other hand, prefers to be direct sown in the garden because it prefers warmish days and cool nights to actually break dormancy and sprout. Now, you're in 5A, which means it is most likely not winter hardy where you are. And so I would definitely try it. It's too late now, obviously. If you could have gotten the seed in the ground about 6 weeks before your first frost and give it some low tunnel protection, chances are maybe, unless you get a heavy snow load, it may have worked for you. And so that means that you're going to have to plant it in very early spring, which means that you can't direct seed it because it's way too cold in very early spring, which is about 6 to 8 weeks before your last spring frost, right? Think about what it's doing 2 months before your last frost. Probably fairly cold and very likely to be frozen, right? So you're going to need to sprout them inside. I have never gotten larkspur to germinate. I've never tried to germinate larkspur inside. But I will tell you that the variation in temperature is the deal, where it likes cool nights, for instance, 55-degree nights and 60-degree days. 60 to 70-degree days, warmish sunshine days. And if you can create that environment indoors with those kind of temperature swings, then you may very well not have any problem with actually doing that, right? So if you posted your questions in the question with the bubble, with the question mark, that is not working. Instagram has had a glitch now for a couple weeks, and when I hit it, there's no questions there. So just post your questions in your in the comments here, and I will catch you up on that. I will look. All right, so that's kind of what I do about larkspur. Have you ever grown carrot flowers? Oh yeah, well that's Queen Anne's lace, right? That's Daucus is the name of that family. And we grow Dara, which you'll find that on our website, that seed, and that is a really big crop for us. We fall plant and very early spring plant it. It's super productive, and I started inside and planted outdoors. And y'all, I do, not Dara, but carrots. I don't know what that is, sorry. In season. Hey lady, Jenny Love mentioned the other day on a podcast that she doesn't fertilize cool season hardy annual transplants when she plants them in the fall. Is that correct? Well, I mean, we prepare all of our soil with a low dose of general purpose organic fertilizer, no matter what time of the year it is. But other than that, we don't really do a whole lot of fertilizing. So, I mean, it doesn't really help them. Fertilization oftentimes will stimulate top growth if it's got a lot of nitrogen in it, which classically most organic fertilizers don't have. So other than our just standard in the soil prep process, we don't fertilize either. So yes, that would be true. All right. Hello. Hey, 2 years in a row, my Dalmatian foxglove gave the bloom. So I don't understand your question, except that it sounds like they died. Digitalis is really pretty winter hardy, if I am not mistaken, and this is from relying on my memory, which is not a very good thing for me to do. I think it's like zone 5. So if you're in winter hardiness zone 5 or south of that, meaning 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, they should survive your winter. Now, another big part of that is, were they planted on time? Where they have time, and we plant transplants. We don't direct, you would not direct sow those outside, right? You start them inside 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks before you need to plant them. Plant them 6 to 8 weeks before your first frost to allow them to get well established before they face winter. And so we've grown Dalmatian probably 3 or 4 years now, and they're super beautiful. But I'm in zone 7, so I don't know what zone you're in. But if you're in zone maybe 4 or 3, then they don't winter over. You would need to plant. I think Dalmatian is truly a hardy annual. It doesn't need a cold treatment to bloom. So you could plant it in very early spring, I think. Lisa, I'm following your sweet pea sowing method. At what point do you suggest I pinch the seedling? Texas 8B here with mid 80 degrees. So we typically, sweet peas are heavy branchers all by themselves. And so we typically don't pinch them. And we're just getting ready. Actually, Bobo will be planting ours tomorrow. And it's typically just one single stem, actually we started them in the Swift 27 and they did beautifully. We're super excited about this. And so they'll be planted, and I typically do not do pinching as we're heading into winter. Pinching is stressful, planting them is stressful, heading into winter is stressful. They need to have time to recover from a pinch, and there's not really time at this point. We've learned to plant sweet peas a little later than earlier because we don't want them to do a lot of top growth before they go into winter. Actually, my transplants are probably, they're only like this tall, but they are beautiful and healthy, and they're about 2 weeks old, so we're going to plant them tomorrow. But I typically, and then when winter, they go through winter like that, right? And in very early spring, the branching that comes up around that one little stem that we planted is phenomenal. So I have never felt the need to pinch, but you can pinch them if you feel like that, that they need it. And I see here somebody saying that they've germinated larkspur in their garage in a grow light, indicating, I would guess in a garage, that means it's cooler. So there you go. When you start Lysianthus seeds, do you do it in plug trays or soil blocks? Well, we buy plugs now. You only, typically as a commercial cut flower grower, oftentimes, many of us feel the need to start it from seed in the beginning, but then you realize it costs a lot more to start it from seed in your time, and especially if you have to heat a greenhouse. So we buy plugs. But when I did actually start some last year. Since we sell the seed, I thought, well, we need to start them from seed and demonstrate that. I used the 3/4 inch block because here's the problem with starting Lysianthus from seed. It's not that it doesn't germinate. I got it to germinate in 7 days. That's not the problem. It is just an incredibly slow grower, and she is super picky about the air temperatures that she needs to grow in. And what happens when they don't get that air temperature is they do what's called they rosette. And that means that after you've grown them for 12 weeks to get a plant that big, and that's how long it takes, all of a sudden you just get vegetative growth and you never get stems. And that is strictly, I think I wrote about this in the new book coming out, the Cut Flower Handbook. I think I wrote that Lysianthus holds a grudge. And that's how it happens. After all of that long work, then all of a sudden your Lizzie does not bloom. How painful is that? Or you could have bought plugs from growers that control the temperature and know how to grow them, and they show up on your doorstep ready to be planted. That's what I went through. But many of us want to go through that challenge. And there are people that grow it successfully, but I just have a lot of other jobs that I'm better at than doing that. So when I did start them, 3/4 inch block, but you need to look into that and make sure it's like they can't go above 70 degrees in air temperature. Carrot, the vegetable that produces flowers 1 year later. Well, I do believe that is the Daucus family. And I think all carrots ultimately go on to create a flower. And I think some, just like in any cut flower, there are some varieties that are better than others. So no, I have never grown carrots and didn't harvest them to eat to see if they would produce a flower. But the Daucus definitely produces a carrot in the ground because we see that when we're pulling them up, right? Let's see. Why don't you use CVB in tabs with hydrangea or basil? So funny. Suzanne said that right last week on the show. And in fact, we put CVB in tablets in all of our buckets, But those two flowers really don't require it. They aren't polluters of the water is what that means. They don't expel a lot of debris, so it's not required, but it doesn't hurt them. Typically, I would go out in my hydrangea harvesting. I would go out and do hydrangeas before I do any other crops. I mean, we used to cut a lot of hydrangeas. I'd go out with 6 or 8 buckets just with plain water and go to the hydrangea patch with the golf cart, and I would flood those buckets with hydrangeas, and then I would just take them in and put them straight in the cooler, and then load the cart again with harvest buckets that have got the proper product in there. But basil and hydrangeas don't require it, but they don't really need it either. So it just really depends. If I'm out in the field harvesting basil and all I have are buckets with CVB in, I put them in there. So when she said that, try not to correct people, right? What she said is actually true, that it's not required, but we typically, sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. It just depends on where we're the stage of harvest I'm in, like how many more buckets I have and what my cart looks like. Foxglove is winter hardy to zone 5. Thank you. That's what I was thinking. They were transplants 6 weeks before frost in 7B. I would say in 7B, if your transplants died, I think that's what you were saying. And I would say for sure something else happened. It wasn't because it wasn't hardy. I mean, we fall plant Dalmatian, I guess, for the last 3 years. And they come through like a champ. So you check your growing location. Is it good drainage? That's usually, we often immediately think that stuff's not cold hardy where we are, but in fact it's winter growing other issues that can sometimes be the culprit, like wet feet. What we don't realize, even if you're growing in that spot for summertime, because it's hot outside, the ground dries out really, really quick. In the winter, that's why we say prepare in fall your very early spring planting spots, because once your soil gets wet in early winter, it never dries out all winter. And so if you have a spot that has a little slow to drain, which you wouldn't know this unless you're out there digging around in the soil in the middle of the winter to actually investigate to see that that's happening, that would be my first place to start, is to make sure that you're planting them into deep, well-drained soil, that they're mulched properly, and that they're healthy, hardy little transplants that you're planting. So I'd give it a try again. All right, I'm rereading your Vegetables Love Flowers book. You mentioned you replant some cool flowers in summer to have blooms late in this fall. Can you give me an idea of some of those that you would do that with? Well, there's snaps. You would plant group 1 and 2 snaps, which means those are snaps that bloom during short days because the days get shorter, right, as we're going into fall. Did it with Sweet William, the true annuals like the Amazon series. I think I did Feverfew, but the day length kind of screwed them up. Of course, we also grow kale, cut flower kale, right? But you just have to do a little investigation of, when do you need to start it to actually give it time to grow up and bloom before frost comes, right? And then are they day length sensitive? That's the problem. That's the part we don't often think about. Sometimes flowers, you've got time to start it before your first frost, but as the days get shorter, some flowers just won't perform. For instance, cosmos and dahlias love the short days. That's what makes them kick into high gear, right? So give that a try. And I also I was thinking about this morning. So do not, y'all, forget about planting sunflowers late into the fall or having them bloom. We've had 2 hard frosts. I mean frost, ice on the top of our plants, right? I have 2 plantings of sunflowers that are still left out in the garden. And they're like chest high on me, right? And so I just was busy, and when that frost was coming, I thought, oh well, I guess I lost the last 2 plantings, right? Interesting observation. So there was actually 3 plantings, 2 of them that were tall, and then the third one was fairly immature. It was probably only like 15 or 18 inches tall. So they didn't get covered when this frosty weather came. The shortest, most immature ones all the foliage got snapped. I mean, it was brown, spotted by the next afternoon after it defrosted. It just looks terrible. And I'm like, oh, well, lost them. Guess what? Those mature ones have no damage virtually. And so this morning as I was pulling out to come here, I thought, you know what? I got to stop and look at those sunflowers again. I literally jumped out of the car and ran over. And those sunflowers that were pretty mature and close to blooming are going to bloom. And I can't wait. I hope I still have them for the in-person workshop next weekend. I'm hoping and thinking that they will. All I'm saying is that sunflowers are more cold tolerant, not hardy, cold tolerant than we think they are. And just think if I'd have thrown a cover over them, And sunflowers are in huge demand this time of the year. Another point, that in these cooler growing conditions of fall, we find that the bicolors, which are quick to drop their petals, that's part of their problem, they hold their petals longer. So don't forget to investigate more sunflowers. I could just sell sunflowers over and over and over again. All of my customers that were already buying a ton of annuals from me, the sunflowers were like the icing on the cake. And now is only second to spring in demand. All right, let's see. The Seed of Life Farm. Hello. I have had a bumper crop of Sweet William thanks to your great advice. Thank you. Bloomed from May and still standing now after first frost. Do those plants last more than 2 years? Well, I would not rely on any of them, because even if they're a true biennial, it depends on what variety you're growing. And, I talk about this in the new book, the Cut Flower Handbook. We're so confused, and with good reason. There are families, Rudbeckia, Dianthus, and what else were we just talking about a minute ago? Well, mums, they aren't in the new book. But there's flower families that have some perennials, some biennials, and some annuals. But we think of them all the same, and they have totally different needs. So Sweet William that I grow and that we sell the seed of and that I recommend growing, most of them are cool season hardy annuals, meaning you plant them and they bloom within a year and then they're done. I don't care how good the foliage looks. They will not produce well the next year and oftentimes have a high rate of die-off. And if you're a gardener, go for it. But for a flower farmer, you can't count on them. If they're true biennials, oftentimes Electron, which is the most commercially grown Sweet William, is a strong reseeder. I know that Dave Dowling kept patches of Super Duplex and Electron. Both of them are awesome, different colors in them. They're bicolored blooms, and they just reseed themselves. He maintained a patch doing that, but that takes a lot of work too. It's sometimes easier just to replant them. So I would say, you'll have to, it depends on what you're actually growing. All right, friends. So Redgate, what seeds are you still starting now? Well, it really depends on, and funny, Lane and I did a seed talk podcast yesterday, and we were talking about some of these cool flowers that bloom prematurely because of really long falls, and we got into this discussion about what seeds do I start again. So first off, the first reason I would still be starting seeds now are seeds that we forgot to start. Happens all the time. New seeds that I'm just learning about that I want to test as a cool flower, or I just learned from another grower. And then there are those that we had germination failure for whatever reason, or not enough of them, or what Lane and I talked about yesterday, if fall just is going on too long and my plants are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and we haven't even gone into winter yet, I'm concerned that they're not going to survive winter because they're so big. And they've started to set bud and just misbehave in generally. Oftentimes I'll restart those seeds, and I then decide when those plants are big enough, are we going to plant those and ditch the others or what? And this is the way you need to think about it, friends. Me starting more seeds now for some situations is like an insurance policy. Let's talk about your car insurance. You pay your car insurance every year, right? But you hope to never use it, but you pay for it anyway. I do that in seed starting. It's like if I am questioning a crop, is it going to be a problem? Are they going to get too big? I don't suspect that this is a year that that's going to happen, but we have had some years that they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I just know they'll die in January when we go to single digits potentially, right? And so those seeds that I start the second time around may or may not ever get planted, but they're insurance that if I need to have them, we have them. And that's the difference between commercial growers and home gardeners. You have to figure that stuff out because, I mean, we can't do without a crop, right? All right, friends, it is 1 o'clock, and maybe someday soon, Instagram will actually fix their question problem because it's kind of hard for me to look through all the comments. So I'll do this one last one. Mahogany Splendor will definitely get winter killed. I don't know where you are, but it's a tropical basically. Do you suggest wintering over, pull them out? And I just start new seeds. They're so productive. And again, annual plants, the occasional one might winter over. You might have the great situation for it, but that's the exception instead of the rule. If you're a home gardener, go for it. But if you are a commercial cut flower farmer, you should be doing something else with that space. You know, pull that stuff out, you restart in the spring or in very early spring and plant it as soon as your last frost pass. That is, you know, I think that was such a big turning moment for me. You know, I kind of harp on this a lot in flower farming school is you one day realize that it's not about you saving every plant and getting every mile out of it that you have to. I remember saying in my mind, oh gosh, look at that grower. I can't even believe they're pulling that stuff out. I could have gotten 3 more weeks out of that, but guess what? They have a crop ready to be planted in that spot that is going to be far more productive and more of a cash crop than what you're nursing that other crop to. And the day you realize that as a commercial grower is the day you'll flip your business. And that's what we just try so hard to help people see and understand how to succession plant and be ruthless. Be ruthless in your harvesting, pulling, and just moving the flowers over and over again. All right, friends, it's after 1, back to moving here. So remember to join me Friday inside the Gardener's Workshop app for our Friday live show. We still have a few fresh flowers, but we are pulling out the dried flowers here for this winter. So y'all, I cannot wait to share all about what we've discovered about drying flowers. We're having a great show. So join me there. And again, if you want to join me for that in-person workshop, it's a week from this Saturday, the 18th. It's $300, includes lunch. We're going to walk down to the farm, a morning of learning and Q&As. Then we're going to get, this warehouse is about a 15-minute drive. It's 4 miles away. We're going to all jump in the car after we do the farm and do some hands-on stuff and see all my equipment. Then we're going to come up here and do a wrap-up Q&A and give y'all a tour of our new facility because I am pretty proud of it, y'all. All right, friends, until we meet again, ciao.